Every day when you log into ChumbaCasino.com, the ultimate online social casino, you get a free daily bonus. Imagine if you got daily bonuses in other parts of your life.
I chose French fries over loaded French fries.
I asked Stuart from accounting about his weekend, even though I don't care.
I updated my operating system without having to call tech support.
Collect your free daily bonus at ChumbaCasino.com now. And live the Chumba life. VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Cinesmack contains spoilers of the spoiling type. If you don't want your spoilers spoiled, please turn back now. Otherwise, enjoy the show!
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds. Lawrence?
Ladies and gentlemen! Welcome to the main event! This is Cinesmack! And the winner is...
Hello, Cinesmacketeers, and welcome to bout number 141 and the start of our 13th year of Cinesmack, the podcast about films by filmmakers. 13! I am your host, Mike Keeler. Joining me tonight is our panel of award-winning judges. First, filmmaker and owner of Arizona Inc. Studios, Andrew, I Would Have Done It in July, Zumwalt.
Everything is unprecedented until it happens for the first time.
Second, filmmaker and owner of Cheshire Moon Films, Tom, do not touch the merch, motherfucker, Haggis.
No one dies today. That's not true. Lots of people died today, so I just know what I know.
Third, writer, actor, and director, Kyle, brace. Heads down, stay down, fine.
Scientifically, there is an amount of cocaine that would allow me to fly a plane, or at least think I'm good at flying.
How did you know Kyle's foreplay, Mike?
I've heard it across the hall.
I'm usually told head down in the pillow. I'm going to go as fast
face down.
Fourth, filmmaker and owner.
Get this over with. I hear that a lot.
Brace.
Prepare for impact.
We're going to be entering the Hudson.
I'd call it impact. That's a lie.
All right, we have the E. We've earned our E for this month, so good job.
Fourth, filmmaker and owner of One Genome Short Productions, Jairo, makes me want to sniff some lines and go fly a jet, Rowald.
I hope this episode doesn't crash and burn.
Well, we haven't even gotten off the taxiway yet.
It's been pretty good so far, though, I have to say.
All right. Yeah. So we're doing something different. We're not doing our normal Christmas movies. We are actually celebrating the Wright brothers' first flight, manned airplane flight, I should say, and doing two movies about, well, unconventional pilots. So let's poke the monkey so you know what we're talking about.
Ladies and gentlemen, alcoholic aviators and gray-haired goose killers, welcome to the main event. Tonight, two soaring stories of airborne emergencies take to the skies. Who will arrive on time and who will go down in flames? In the first quarter from 2012, written by John Gantis, directed by Robert Zemeckis, starring Denzel Washington, Kelly Riley, and Don Cheadle. Flight! In the second quarter
from 2016, written by Todd Komarnicki, directed by Clint Eastwood, starring Tom Hanks, Aaron Eckhart, and Laura Linney. Sully!
So I had not seen Sully, but I had seen Flight before. And rewatching it, I caught a lot of things, especially a certain actress that's in the movie in a certain show that I really love. Beth is in Flight, and it just totally blew me away. I was not ready for it.
And it's practically the same character.
Yes. So let's poke the monkey.
She's kind of a show.
And start with our first round. Writing.
One of these stories is true and one of these stories is not. And both stories take some artistic license when they're telling their story. One of the interesting things about Sully is, I went back and so I looked at it, and the Miracle on the Hudson, I shouldn't say crash. The Miracle on the Hudson was in 2009, and Sully came out in 2016. Looking back on it, I felt like it was 2 years. Like the plane crashed, and then like Clint Eastwood ran out to the Hudson so he could use footage from while they were getting off in his movie. But apparently there are 7 years between the two. It seemed a lot closer than that. Flight, on the other hand, is for the most part completely fabricated. It's loosely based on a crash from 1990, but it's just basically some of the circumstances behind that, or what's lead kind of the story builds off of that. There isn't really a Denzel character in that crash. So what's interesting is that while Flight kind of uses a fantastical extreme version of a crash, Sully takes something that everybody watched live on TV and watched it unfold over the weeks afterwards, and turned it into a film just 7 years after it happened. It was still very fresh in our minds when it happened. I think part of that is that seeing a low-flying airplane flying so close to Manhattan triggered a lot of people, as it should. I imagine it was terrifying to see that after everything they had been through in 2001. And so I feel like that, and seeing it unfold on TV, I think it kind of created some emotional connections in people's brain, and it fused the story in people's heads. And so that Clint Eastwood would turn around and make a movie version of the story so soon afterwards was risky, because there wasn't a whole lot that, one, we didn't know, and two, it doesn't really give you a whole lot of play with the story. You can't really shift the narrative around too much, because we all know it and we all followed it. And so I guess that's why I was surprising that Clint Eastwood would do a movie like that. Flight, on the other hand, I think strangely it's a better story, but it's one that's been done a lot. There's so many stories, so many movies and books and songs and operas about people dealing with addiction, and this is one where one in a position of power, they many people's lives in their hand, and it kind of asks the questions, maybe sometimes cocaine is good, and it gives us the courage to do things that we wouldn't normally do, and we can actually save people's lives, regardless of how reckless it is. There's a lot of other things with the stories. We can get into dialogue and everything else, but I've kind of been talking a lot here, so I'll let somebody else jump in here. But I think I'm still a little bit on the fence which story I like more. I think Flight, but I'd be interested to hear what you guys say.
Well, I was surprised when I saw Sully. I had never seen Sully either. So this is my first time seeing Sully. And I was surprised at how quickly I was engaged with the characters. They didn't even really spend too much time like developing these characters, but I was engaged with and liked them almost immediately. And I can't explain exactly why. I don't know exactly why that was, but I felt like a connection to these characters right away. And then, with Flight, I think, the audience's engagement with the characters was similar to what, like people around Whip kind of felt. They kind of felt like they were drawn in because he was interesting and charismatic, but then they were kind of pushed away when his addiction kind of took over and he was, lashing out at people or protecting his own ego or whatever it might be that he was doing. And so, you felt kind of like, okay, well, this is the quote unquote hero of the story. This is the character that we're supposed to, have some connection with. But I feel sometimes connected to him and sometimes not. But I think that was actually the strength of the writing there, because I think that's probably what it would really be like to be involved with somebody with that kind of addiction. Like you would be drawn to them because they're interesting and charismatic, but then they would have their moments where you just would want to be away from them. So I felt like the writing and the character development on both was pretty powerful, but invoked kind of different responses. So I don't know that. And I thought the dialogue was good. I really liked the dialogue in Flight, especially some of the stuff where he would say, things like, "Don't tell me how to lie about my own alcoholism," or whatever. I probably got that wrong. It's not the exact quote, but like some of the dialogue was really spot on and really kind of gave you an insight into the characters. So I don't know. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting to think about it, because when you talk about writing for an event that's real, it's really just about how they pace and lay out and present, the factual information, or, close to the factual information, I guess, and how they tell that story. Because, like Tom said, it was all over the news for a long time, and a lot of us would be familiar with that story. But it is interesting to see it having to be told in a dramatic fashion, and I think the linear nature and also the flashbacks, really served the storytelling. I thought in this case, sometimes those things can get in the way of doing that, but I think they actually worked really well in this case. And I'm sure we'll get to it when we talk about acting, but Sully is obviously based on a real person, so you kind of have to be true or close to true to his mannerisms. So I wonder how much research and study they did to write the character in a way that was consistent with him. Flight, I think the most interesting part of Flight is the first 45 minutes, which is saying something because it's pretty long. The question and morality of, is this guy a hero or is he a villain for what he did? I find that that's the most interesting thing the movie raises. It quickly turns into a movie about someone struggling with their alcoholism and addiction, which takes a turn and is, a different kind of introspective study. But I thought the way the movie started out, it was going to be very much about the plane crash and the morality of it, and should we look at this guy as a hero or a villain? Is he responsible? Is he not responsible, etc.? And there was like a mystery to it, how bad was the plane crash? And they set up the NTSB woman to be like a ball buster who was coming after his job and his wings and all that stuff. And then really they turned away from a lot of that. And in the end, it just became like a morality tale about someone getting help with their alcoholism, which I actually kind of found much less interesting. So that's my take on it, which probably sounds like the opposite of everybody else's.
So, yeah, Sully was, the writing of Sully was definitely, as we said, based on true events. It was highly pulled from the book. There's a book called Highest Duty that actually Sully helped co-author. And if you've read the book, I don't know if anyone has or any of our listening audience has read it. It pulls very strongly from the book. And there are different accounts. And the movie, I would say, makes it a movie. Like, there are some things you have to just do to enhance the viewing pleasure, because otherwise it gets boring and such. But for the most part, I would say, that it's pretty true to what at least was written. And I would believe that Tom Hanks, seeing Tom Hanks play, well, we can talk about this in acting, so I'll skip that. But, the writing was definitely a true take of the observations and the experiences that the people had that were probably closest to it. And, not everyone remembers everything perfectly in traumatic events. But the story, the bringing down, like, looking at Sully as, you did terrible, terrible things, and we're going to catch you in a lie or something like that. And then the redemption, I is a little more Hollywood, just to get your blood going and get the excitement a little bit and get the applause at the end. But at least shows off some of the struggles that happened after the event that a lot of people didn't see. As we said at the beginning, we all watched this unfold live. We saw the news reports, we saw the interviews, we saw all of this stuff. In fact, I think they pulled the Katie Couric live report directly in the movie. So, there was a lot of stuff that people didn't see that was going on that would be really tough. And I would say that he held together pretty well for probably everything he was going through. I've never been in a mass craziness like this that I don't know. I can't even imagine how he feels, how he felt. But we'll probably talk a little bit more about that in the characters. So this is probably where we're going to go off the rails. I've seen Flight. This is the third time I've watched Flight. I hate Flight. I can't stand the movie. I think it's a terrible movie. The writing, I understand what they're trying to do, but they start you off with this character that you want to root for, and he's a piece of shit. And he is through the entire movie. He destroys everyone's lives around him. I don't care that he went to jail at the end. It doesn't feel like even close to being redemption. I've known people like him. He's destructive, and watching the movie just makes me angry that there are people still out in the world that don't give a damn about anybody else but themselves. And I think the movie is garbage, because you are given a main character that you cannot root for. He's there's nothing good about him. So that's my take on Flight.
One of the things I'll say, since we're talking about the writing, is that one of the things that Sully does really well, I thought, was the way that they replay the events that happened that day, and they it's broken down into these little segments, and then they kind of overlap a little bit when they go back, and then we really don't get the kind of the full story until the end of the movie, where it's kind of put together, and it's I can't decide if it's manipulative or if I like it. It's just explain, and then go on to the court stuff, but the testimony stuff, but like what they do in Flight. And so what you guys are saying with Flight is that, that things slow down, we're real excited. The crash is incredible. And then we kind of come down off that high for the rest of the movie. Sully would have that same problem if they had told the story in a linear fashion. But the writers were able to break up that exciting, moments of the crash and spread it throughout the movie, which I think is beneficial to it. So
it also I think played a little bit and felt like Sully was remembering parts of what he did, his decision, and parts of that day the way that you would as a person. Like you would remember parts and then you get interrupted, and so it kind of stops. Or you think, well, what if I would have done this? And you envision other things. And to me, that's what it kind of felt like. We're viewing memories, like I'm remembering a part of it, or I'm remembering pieces. Maybe
one of the things too, before we leave this thing, yep. They dramatized and they kind of made the NTSB out to be worse than they were in real life.
Agreed.
And I think that's kind of needs to be dealt with in writing, because Sully didn't like the representation they had of the NTSB, and they did it for this dramatic purposes. And I understand that, I get it, but it kind of almost feels like Clint Eastwood was rushing to the movie so much that they were, they had to dude, the guy landed a plane on the Hudson River, and they had to create drama. It's just. It seems weird to me that you have to create a situation, we have to make a bad guy. I'm like, well, then you don't have a movie.
Yeah. The NTSB doesn't normally go out of their way to say that the pilot was in error. Their goal is to figure out what happened and to make airplane travel safer. And they definitely, and I would say this for both movies, they definitely, again, as I mentioned before, they Hollywood a lot of stuff to get some of that, relief at the ends of the films of you have your resolution somewhere. It had to come from somewhere, and so they used the NTSB. But that is a good point, Tom.
All right, guys.
Yeah, I didn't think that was fair. So,
fair.
Let's put it to a vote. Tom.
Ooh, boy. Despite everything I said, I'm going to vote for Sully.
All right. Andrew.
Sully, I believe.
Yeah.
Just mark him down now.
Surprise.
Yeah. Surprise. Kyle.
Sully.
And Gabe.
Oh boy, we're gonna have a clean sweep. I'm gonna go with Sully as well.
All right. So for trivia, since there wasn't a lot about writing for either film or just some kind of mundane mumbo jumbo for any of the others, instead of putting that in, I went ahead and found some some trivia that maybe you didn't know about the Wright brothers. But the accident in flight, like Tom said, was inspired by a real-life disaster, the crash of Alaska Airlines 261 on January 31st, not of 1990, but of 2000. Some dialogue in the film closely resembles the CVR transcript. Like in the movie, the pilots of Alaska 261 rolled the airplane to an inverted position to try to stabilize the flight. Unlike the film, however, this did not assist them in recovering the aircraft. The root cause of the crash was found to be an inadequate maintenance of the airplane stabilizer jack screw, which caused its threads to wear down excessively and eventually jammed the jack screw. While the pilots were trying to reach Los Angeles for an emergency landing, the threads were ripped out of the stabilizer, moved to a position that forced the plane into its fatal dive. In 1889, the Wright brothers began to publish a weekly newspaper, the West Side News. The following year, they published a short-lived daily newspaper, the Evening Item. In 1892, they switched gears and opened the Wright Cycle Company, a successful bicycle repair and sales shop to finance their flying experiments.
So you want to say that they had the West Side Stories to share with people?
All right, moving on. Second round, which is acting.
That was good, and you know it. I actually thought you were going to play music, just have some in between music instead of trivia, since he said he couldn't find it. Just, da-da-da-da-da. No. All right.
Nice.
Yeah, let's talk about acting. Coolness. So, Don Cheadle is in Flight. Denzel Washington, as we all know, is in Flight. John Goodman, just to name some of the more popular people. Kelly Riley and Nadine Valquez, if I can say that correctly. Jeez, it doesn't roll off the tongue very well. All very good actors. I've seen them in other things. We'll talk about Denzel last because I don't want to take too much away from Gabe rushing over Denzel. But Don Cheadle, God, man.
You might be surprised.
Don Cheadle's just, I mean, he's just a natural caused actor. He just has this flow to him, and I just enjoy the parts that he gets into, albeit he has a very similar persona that he plays in a lot of his films. Very that straight-laced, good demeanor type character, and he's just really good at it. John Goodman in this film felt like he was not given a script and he was told just to have fun on set and go crazy. Yeah, that's about that. And Nadine is, she wasn't in the film for very long, but it's unfortunate too because she's been in quite a few other things and has, I would say, a pretty good acting career ahead of her, if not from some of her past stuff that she's done that I really enjoy. And Kelly Riley, man, she can play the kind of cracked out girl, or she can also play the sweet and innocent, and she does it very well. I don't really know. I don't know how to really describe her in everything that she does, but and she was in Pride and Prejudice and Sherlock Holmes and Yellowstone, and she has such a vast charisma of acting that I really appreciate from an actor. So let's talk about Sully, which I would say is probably one of the easier acting groups to talk about due to, Tom Hanks, as we all know, he's just incredible. He's an incredible actor. Does a really good job with, I think we talked about mannerisms, and if you've seen any interviews actually with the real Captain Sullivan versus what Tom Hanks did, you can really tell that he really tried to build some essence, which I feel like Tom Hanks is a pretty good character actor when it comes to especially true to life stuff. Aaron Eckhart, I don't know if he just doesn't get enough love all the time, but I think he's just a damn good actor. I think he was a little more upstaged in this because, again, of Tom Hanks, but just a damn strong actor. I don't know. That's my 50,000 view of the actors, so you guys can jump in now. See what I did there?
I will.
Come on, that was good.
Do any planes fly at 50,000 feet? That seems really high.
They do.
It seems really high. That's funny.
Anyways, Nadine Velasquez will always be the wife of Ruxin from The League, if anybody ever watched that show.
Nice.
Also, Flight may have one of the greatest opening 5 minutes in movie history, to be fair. I could watch it dressed for hours.
I was going to talk a little bit about that in directing, Kyle, so thank you. I think you're keep going, man.
The acting in these movies, right, I think is going to be of a higher caliber than sometimes we deal with, because we're dealing with actors like Tom Hanks, Aaron Eckhart, Denzel Washington, Laura Linney, like people you think is people you would think of as being really good actors. I think some of the supporting cast lets it down in places. John Goodman is doing his first draft you know what he's doing? He is auditioning to be the dude in The Big Lebowski. Doesn't know the movie was already made, and he's like, this is what I did when I was going to be the dude. He's in a different movie. If they would have said at the end that he hit his head in the crash and John Goodman was imagined the whole time, that would have made more sense.
I'm sorry. No, sorry. I can't stand for that. Sorry. John Goodman was awesome. He was maybe said something about the movie, but he was the highlight of the movie. I thought he was fantastic.
Him being the highlight of the movie really points out how bad the rest of the movie is. Because he's terrible.
I'm not going to argue with that.
He took me out of it.
Suffers from the Fences problem. Remember when we watched Fences and we were kind of on the fence about Denzel Washington's acting because he was really hamming it up and chewing the scenes and stuff? There were moments where he was I just didn't believe it. I didn't believe what he was giving me, which is strange because I usually do. I am a Denzel Washington fan.
When he's chewing his teeth at breakfast, I don't know what was going on there.
The turkey sausage is great. Try it. The acting is really all over the place in Flight. You have his friend from the pilot union who has a completely different acting style from everybody else in the movie. And John Goodman, who, like I said, doesn't belong in this movie. And then Denzel Washington, who goes from being a very sympathetic character and you're really torn about, did he do something good or something bad? Just becomes a raging asshole who is solely redeemed at the end by telling the truth once. I just dislike that. Anna Gunn was pretty good in the movie. She's like in Sully, she was the one sympathetic NTSB board member. Mike O'Malley should stick to being the host of Guts. He is terrible. He is a comic villain. He's auditioning for Lex Luthor with that bald head of his. Get him a piece of the aggro crag and shut down. It's bad. I don't know. Aaron Eckhart is pretty good, but he's one note. The co-pilot in Flight, I don't remember his name, but he is a comical Christian, which is hilarious. Him and his culty wife are so into Jesus.
Culty wife? Is that what you said?
Yeah, culty. She's got them eyes. There's something wrong in her head. She's got eyes of a shark.
Gracie's.
Yeah, it's all over. Flight is all over the place. So Sully is much forward.
And the only reason he tells the truth at the end is because he feels some guilt or passion towards the girl. He doesn't feel bad for himself. He just doesn't want his girl to get blamed, who's dead, and that's not a reason.
I basically said out loud too at the end. I was like, I don't believe he tells the truth there. I really don't think.
No way.
That's the biggest high stakes moment he can lie. And he has shown he is capable of lying about anything, no matter how big or small. So I was like, I just didn't buy his face turn at the end where he's a good guy all of a sudden by going to jail.
No.
His relationship with his son was also really terrible. And his ex-wife had 10 seconds of screen time.
Yeah.
That's the most stereotypical meeting of a drunk husband and an ex-wife I've ever seen. That was just crazy. But yeah, man, it's all over the place. Tom Hanks is great. I'm not saying anything crazy by saying Tom Hanks is a great actor, but everybody else is just pretty solid. It's a lot more understated and believable. But if you're into the whole dramatic thing and you like crazy characters all over, Flight is probably the movie for you. That's my thoughts.
All the characters are very flighty.
Oh, Andrew, your jokes are different. The different levels of them. They're on a different level.
Gabe, go. You go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, you can't really go wrong with Tom Hanks for sure. And I think, that it was a perfect choice because Tom Hanks is just so likable, and I think I get that impression about Sully himself as well. He's just a really likable, personable kind of human being, and so I think Tom Hanks is a perfect choice for that role. I would want Aaron Eckhart to be my best friend. He just seemed, supportive and kind, and I was like, I liked him in this. He didn't have a very big part, and sure, he was kind of overshadowed a little by Tom Hanks, but I would want him to be my friend. And I'm with Kyle on John Goodman in Flight. He just, as soon as he showed up, well, there's a few things. It's not only his acting, but it's also the music when he shows up and those kinds of things, which we can talk about later. But he's just way over the top, and he just took me out of the movie. I'm like, I normally like John Goodman. I like him a lot, and I think he's a capable actor. But for some reason, with this part and the way he portrayed it, it just was too much for me. And maybe he was there. One of the things that surprised me about Flight was how dark and how heavy it ended up being. And maybe he was there to kind of bring a little levity to the thing, but I just don't think it worked because he just felt really out of place in the whole context of everything else. I've been accused of not really liking Denzel Washington, and but I think he did a great job in this, and I think he was a little bit more subtle, a little more understated than he often is. And with certain situations where he's like, you can tell he's feeling guilt or remorse or whatever, and he doesn't, it's not shown through dialogue, it's shown through his facial expressions or his actions and that kind of thing. And I actually liked Denzel Washington in this. I thought it was a really good performance out of him. Whether or not you like his character is a different thing, but I think his performance was really good. I don't know. I think both of these films have really strong acting performances, so this will be a tough one to choose.
Yeah, I completely understand why the John Goodman character comes in there. I mean, if that was the kind of people, I mean, you talk about enabling, and there are so many people in Flight that enabled Denzel Washington's his character, and the John Goodman character is, I mean, he's obviously at the extreme end of it. Like, who wouldn't want to hang out with John Goodman? He sounds like a complete, sounds like a blast just hanging out with him. And I mean, he's the first one there to, help him, and so it just, I think it makes more sense for Denzel Washington's character if those were the people he's surrounding himself with, that would happen. But then you have, other people like, the union guy, his union friend, Bruce Greenwood, is another character that, I mean, he's doing what's best for the union, but in a way he's also enabling, Denzel Washington's character as well. On the other side, I thought Sully was really good, but I'm starting to wonder if Tom Hanks has done so much that I don't know where else he can go, and give us something new. He has these, very plain spoken characters that, speak the truth and everything. And I just, I don't know. It just seemed like another, Tom Hanks character. So I feel like Denzel went further, and it was a much more complex character. And I don't know. I don't think we're cheering for him to get away with the crash. I think it's more about, what's rock bottom for him. And when it's ultimately on the line, it's when, someone he loves. This isn't, I mean, it's different than his wife and his son. This is someone that he cared for, and their name being dragged through the mud, and they aren't there to defend themselves. That's his, bottom rung. And I think that's the interesting, these like movies, is that what is it? What is rock bottom? And some of them don't, sometimes they wind up dead. But with Flight, it was just, in the court scene, just like, what's his bottom going to be? It does take away from the weird watchability of it when you know that that's coming, but I don't know. That's I like trying to see people overcome that, but it's frustrating, especially if you've dealt with it in real life. But it's once people turn it around, it's an amazing thing.
All right. That's it.
For the whole show? That's it? Our last episode?
For the whole show. That's it. See you guys later. All right. Let's put it to a vote. Andrew.
Sully.
I mean, I knew where that was going. Kyle.
Sully.
Gabe.
Well, Tom Hanks is fantastic as usual, but I'm actually going to go with Denzel Washington and his really powerful, nuanced performance in Flight.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Hang on a second. I will prepare the press release.
Yes, we can.
I think this was just, he's trying to redeem. What has he got on you? How much?
Even if he can change, so can I.
Oh my God!
He was a character. It wasn't even him. You're
we might have Denzel back on the show. Yeah, I'm gonna go Flight as well.
All right.
Kelly Riley. Sorry, Kelly Riley. I didn't say that, but Kelly Riley. That's awesome.
Oh yes, Kelly Riley. Producer and director Clint Eastwood deliberately filmed the escape onto the life raft without rehearsal in order to capture the physical difficulty of releasing the raft. The actions of Tom Hanks and Aaron Eckhart were unscripted. The world's first airplane passenger was mechanic Charles Furness, and he was carried aloft by Wilbur Wright on May 18th, 1908. Third round. Directing.
So, let's start with Robert Zemeckis, who actually, didn't he direct Polar Express? Is that true? So did he direct Uncanny Valley, Tom Hanks? Mike's nodding, but he's unmuting his microphone.
I believe so. Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
I have to mute my mic differently than you guys get to. Yeah, didn't he do Polar Express? I thought he did Polar Express. Well, no, wait. He did A Christmas Carol.
No, he did. He did Polar Express. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
He did. He's done all the creepy Uncanny Valley movies recently.
I don't have any follow-up. I just thought it was interesting that he directed that movie. Anyways, he did a really bad job at wrangling John Goodman in from being crazy. He can't stop Denzel Washington from chewing the scenery. And he can't make some of the performances interesting, unfortunately, which is bad. Also, I thought first of all, the way he shot the intro and the plane crash was almost perfect. I've never seen a plane crash like that in a movie that gave me that kind of anxiety until I saw Sully. I'd never seen either of these movies before. And I'm not a scared flyer or anything. I don't have any problems flying. But they were terrifying. Absolutely terrifying, the plane crashes. But I just think he kind of failed and let people down reining in the acting and getting the acting on point to what he wanted to tell in the story. I don't know. I was not thrilled. I didn't think it was great. Clint Eastwood, I thought, did a really good job with Sully. I think it's very totally concise. It's very well told. There's no glaring errors or plot holes or anything like that. I think it's very well shot. I think it's a bit boring at times with some of the shots it chooses, but it's really hard to complain too much. It just was a really well-directed film. I thought the problem with Flight comes down to a lot of direction. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, I think Sully is really in Clint Eastwood's very kind of sparse, minimalist style. I mean, he's a very kind of practical, no nonsense kind of director. And if you ever hear any stories about how he shoots and directs a movie, it's just like, okay, let's get in there, let's get it done, and let's get out. And he's very, very efficient and economical about it. And you can kind of tell that with a lot of his movies. they're very bare bones at times. But I think that may also be his strength. And I also appreciated how, like you said, Kyle, how concise it was. The editing was just really fantastic. It was just like no nonsense, no waiting around. We're just moving on. We keep moving forward with this. And I thought it was very well, very tightly directed. It's not going to be, like a Marvel movie or something where we're going to get a lot of crazy visual effects and crazy camera angles and that kind of thing. But we're going to get very competent filmmaking with good storytelling and good acting. And that's what we got out of Clint Eastwood for Sully. Robert Zemeckis is he's a very accomplished director. We may have uneasy feelings about the Uncanny Valley movies you were talking about before. But I mean, some of his movies are maybe some of the best ever made. Some of our favorites, like Forrest Gump and Back to the Future, and like how can you go wrong with those? I mean, he's a very solid, very accomplished director, and I think that also shows in Flight. I think it's a very solidly directed movie. Great cinematography, great acting. I just don't, this one's, I thought the acting category was going to be hard. I think this category is going to be pretty hard too, because I think both of these are very, very well made movies.
Yeah, I'm going to have to, this is the one positive that I am going to say about Flight. The first 20 minutes of that flight, of them on the plane, and that entire sequence was so white knuckle, and so there's so much anxiety watching that if you just let yourself get immersed. They did it so well and made it so intense and almost scary, and just he did a really good job making that moment feel like you were sitting there. And I think that has something to say about what that was. And I think Tom was the one that said it earlier about if Sully would have shown all the action and everything else, and maybe it would have gone down. And maybe, but that was a choice that was done. Maybe it was also trying to do the parallel of coming down off of a high. You have this intense moment, and the rest of the film is a letdown. And maybe they meant to do it, maybe they didn't. I would say they probably didn't, but but that the flight is just absolutely incredible, and he flips everything over, and oh my gosh, it's just wow. And then I would also want to say though that even the shots with the Hudson and stuff, and the way that they did that, there's just some really intense moments. And when they're inside of the cabin and trying to get people out, and the panic that ensues, and you can just see there are some people that are like, I'm getting off right now, I don't care who's in front of me. And then the other people that are just like, I gotta wait. And then you have you just have all different types of emotions, and it is 100% shown and very well done. And for you to say that it was unscripted, what Aaron Eckhart and Tom Hanks did when they were on in that scene, it shows, because I mean they're very natural and very like, oh okay, and just kind of doing stuff like they would, and I find that's it's Clint Eastwood. It doesn't surprise me at all. It really doesn't. Clint Eastwood has a unique directing style. He's pretty famous for coming in under budget and coming in under schedule every time. I don't know if that's true for Sully, but I know that there's a lot of actors that enjoy working with him, but he has a very different directing style. I saw an interview with him with some actors that worked with him, and they did a scene, and he's like, oh, we're going to do that again. See if I can do that better. And Clint Eastwood leaned over and was like, why? We got it. And that was it. That was it. So I think he has a way, and his movies, at least the ones that I've seen that he's directed, he's done a fantastic job, especially ones that he's acted in. So I don't know. I don't feel that Clint Eastwood has done. I feel like the last 10, 15 years he's had like a couple of good movies, but I don't know. A lot of them are, 1517 to Paris and Richard Jewell and Jersey Boys and J. Edgar. I mean, I don't know. He's turning them out so quickly. I don't feel. I don't know. Nothing. So I'm comparing everything to Unforgiven, which is possibly one of the best westerns of all time. But it's just, God, are we going to get another movie like that? Because Mystic River I thought was fantastic, and $1 Million Baby was great, but just lately it's just it feels to me like it's quantity over quality. Well, maybe he's getting old and he just wants it to get a story out.
It's possible, but I don't.
When you're that age, it's like I
just got to get my story out. Yeah.
I just don't think. And if that's the case, then cool. Make as many movies as you want. But I just, he seems very like he's trying to do anti-Hollywood movies that are. I mean, he's doing a lot of real life tales about World War II and multiple terrorism attacks. And I just.
If I can, I will say
it was less polished.
I will say Letters from Iwo Jima might be my favorite Eastwood film that he's directed.
And him trying to punch out all these movies, maybe this is a precursor to what happens when Adam Sandler gets really old. Maybe he'll just start pumping out movies like crazy. Oh,
like he's not now?
Oh, wait.
Yeah. Halloween is relatively new. Just everybody remember that.
Well,
hey, you know what? I'm not going to fault Adam Sandler if he's like, hey, I'm going to go on a cruise and make a movie with Jennifer Aniston and make $20 million and have fun with my friends for 3 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good for him.
Okay,
I don't give a shit how good the movie is. Have fun, man.
Okay, but once again, it goes back to maybe Clint Eastwood just has a passion for some of these stories, and he's like, I want to tell these stories before I'm gone, and this is my retirement. This is what I want to do, and he's just churning them out because he wants, and he knows that some of them are going to stick to the flypaper, and others are going to be raising success, and he just doesn't care because he wants to tell the story that he's passionate about, and maybe that's all it is.
It's possible. I do love that we're comparing Adam Sandler and Clint Eastwood, but I think
I'm talking about quantity over quality. That was the only comparison.
I know, but
would you ever hear anybody do that?
Only on Cinesmack, ladies and gentlemen. Only can you hear that here.
Oh my God.
I don't know. I
actually think it's.
Here, let me put you this way. When I see Clint Eastwood's name on a movie, I don't immediately go out and go see it like I did 20 years ago.
Right. There was a time when you couldn't miss a Clint Eastwood directed movie.
I would 100% agree with that.
And now when I see his name on the movie, I know exactly what I'm going to get, and I have a pretty good idea how it's going to end, and I have a pretty good idea how the story's going to go. And it's not, I need something new. And, I'm not going to drop, $20 to go see a Clint Eastwood movie at the theater unless the story is really compelling to me. And oftentimes it's not. So
and that's what, like Mule, for instance, with him, it looked like a good story. I've seen the movie, but I didn't go to a theater to see it. I waited until I could see it at home. And that's just, I knew what I was going to get, so I waited.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one criticism of Clint Eastwood movies would be that his pacing is very slow and deliberate. There are times when you feel like, oh, this is really kind of like, kind of dragging. But I didn't feel that with Sully. I felt like that. I felt like the editing, the pacing was just like almost too fast, and it almost came to an end. When it ended, I was like, oh, that was it. That was the end. That was one kind of criticism I probably should have mentioned in the writing category, but maybe can mention here. I felt like they didn't really know exactly how to end it, and so it just kind of ended.
Yeah,
but but the pacing was so quick. I expected more from the movie, and then all of a sudden it was over, and I was like, oh, that was a full hour and a half.
You know what? Yeah, I mean, kudos to Sully for putting out a 90-minute movie. I'm sure there are plenty of directors that would have tried to stretch it to 220, and I'm, fantastic. I love, honestly, and that's my point. Flight could learn from Sully's brevity. I mean, imagine how great Flight would be if it was, as condensed as Sully was. But I mean, and you've got Castaway is kind of the crosshairs, but the cross section between these two movies, because it's Robert Zemeckis directing Tom Hanks about someone who is trying to overcome their situation. He's not trying to get off the island of alcoholism, but he's it's the same kind of story.
And he's in a plane crash.
He likes those movies where someone just needs to help themselves, or subpar computer animation. I guess he likes those too.
Well, he was
brought that up. Tom. I'd just like to say how stupid I am in retrospect, spending a few minutes trying to remember whether Robert Zemeckis directed Polar Express, and then looking at his biography to realize he directed Forrest Gump and Castaway. Those movies were not in my mind, but I was thinking of Polar Express when I think of Zemeckis and Tom Hanks.
Christmas. It's Christmas.
I know, but that's really stupid of me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he did what? Polar Express, A Christmas Story, and Beowulf were like back to back to back with his Uncanny Valley movies.
Oh, Christmas Carol. Yeah.
Christmas Carol. Oh, yeah. That's what.
And then you can go back further. I mean, it was Back to the Future. So.
Well, I'm just saying for the Uncanny Valley movies that.
Oh yeah,
people.
He had a hell of a time with it. He really did.
I would also argue that Robert Zemeckis may have one of the strongest lineups of films he's directed of anyone in history.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable the movies he's directed. He's responsible for so many good movies, which is really awesome. But yeah, I think that Sully's runtime is perfect for the story they want to tell. I think it's honestly perfect. If it was a half hour longer, it would be boring. If it was, I can't be shorter and be considered a movie, honestly. But 136 is great. You tell a good story and it's brief, that's great. Flight definitely dragged on in places, for sure. Yeah.
So, but to that 93 minutes at the same time, I have to go, what is there a movie in the Sully story? The fact that they didn't crunch it down into 93 minutes. I mean, there was nothing else to tell. And some of the stuff actually had to get, expanded upon, and they had to kind of stretch some things out. They had to add the NTSB, villainy stuff. Like, I feel like if you had read the Sully book, you'd go, I don't think there's a movie here. And if it is, it's going to be 93 minutes. So it just goes back to that. I don't know if, I like Sully. I think it's entertaining and everything, but some of the changes they made, I question whether or not it should have been made in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea to think about, for sure.
But has everyone gone, because we're way over on our time?
Directing.
Let's put it to a vote. Kyle.
Oh boy, now that I've just sang the praises of Robert Zemeckis, I'm going to go ahead and vote for Sully.
All right, Gabe?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Clint Eastwood and Sully as well.
All right. Tom?
Now I have to go with Robert Zemeckis for keeping computer animation and dead-eyed people out of Flight.
And Andrew, I'm already putting you down for Sully, so...
How do you know I'm not going to go with Robert Zemeckis?
You just said that you hate that movie.
Hey, some people make shitty movies sometimes. It's okay.
It's true.
Very true. Director Robert Zemeckis himself is a pilot. That's all I got for directing for Flight.
I would have
Clint
never.
Eastwood is not.
I would have never have known that.
Sully is Clint Eastwood's 35th movie as a director and his second shortest film. His shortest is 1517 to Paris.
So Robert Zemeckis started directing films in the 70s, and he has directed less films than Clint Eastwood.
Correct.
Yeah, but when did Clint Eastwood start acting in Hollywood?
Well, Clint Eastwood started directing in Hollywood. Sorry, I was just looking at all this while you guys were talking. Play Misty for Me, 1971.
Yeah.
And Zemeckis was... Hold on. Loading.
He did a short movie in like the 80s. It was his first credit.
Yeah.
But Clint Eastwood's first credit was in 1955, so he's been in Hollywood
acting,
longer.
Right.
But he's been directing.
I know.
Used Cars, I think, was his first feature, which, by the way, I think we've talked about. I love Used Cars. I think it's a great movie.
I don't know what that movie is.
Totally underrated. Oh my goodness. You need to watch Used Cars with Kurt Russell. Jack Warden. It's pretty good. It's just about used car salesmen.
I Want to Hold Your Hand was in 1978, 2 years before Used Cars.
Oh, yeah.
He did have two shorts, but I Want to Hold Your Hand was his first movie.
Oh, yeah. Run off to see the
78.
Beatles perform the Ed Sullivan Show. Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's move on to our fourth and final round overall.
Well, we've covered quite a bit of territory already. I'm not quite sure where to go with this. A lot of times we'll talk about music in this category, and I think that's another thing we should talk about regarding Clint Eastwood, because it sounds like he's a somewhat competent musician as well. I think for a number of his movies, he's actually written music. And I think there's a song, I was just looking it up, but if I remember correctly in the credits, there was a song that was credited to him in Sully. Do any of you guys know about that?
Yeah.
What was that?
I remember seeing that in the credits. There was theme by Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, and he I think in many of his movies he's actually written music. I think most of it is piano music.
He wrote the theme song to Sully called "Flying Home."
Yeah, and I think it's actually played during the credits. There's a woman that's singing.
Yep.
Along with it, yeah. And I don't know if he wrote the lyrics or how that worked, but I think we should point that out a little bit too, because we do talk about the music in these movies, and I think it's interesting that he actually provides some of the music for his own movies too. So not only is he cranking them out, but he's also writing music for them, and I just really think that's pretty incredible. I don't know. I don't know if there's any other musical items we would want to talk about, but maybe there's something we would want to talk about regarding the depiction of, air travel and the accidents and that kind of thing.
Can I just say something real quick?
We want to talk about there?
Can I just say something real quick?
Sure.
This is the second time that Sympathy for the Devil has been used in a movie with John Goodman and Denzel Washington in the film together.
Isn't it?
It's Fallen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
You broke up.
I thought Sympathy for the Devil when John Goodman came in was fantastic, and I loved Feeling All Right. It was such a great way to open the movie. I mean,
yes.
I thought both those choices were fantastic. But,
sorry to interrupt you, Gabe.
Everybody hates Flight. So. Oh, go ahead, Gabe. Continue.
Oh,
I didn't want you to
that's
move on
fine.
from
I was
it,
just
so
going to say, do we have any comments on, like, I think one of the important things for these two movies in particular is the accuracy of how the, the flight dynamics and stuff are depicted and that kind of thing. I mean, do we have any comments on that? Any ideas or input on how? I think it was Andrew who was saying that the takeoff and crash sequence in flight was just like nerve-wracking, and that it was really well done. But I mean, do you guys have any other like thoughts on how the flight parts of the movie were portrayed?
I fly. I'm pilot.
Watching two flight disaster movies back to back makes me want to not do any air travel for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm really glad that I got all my traveling out this fall before we did these films.
It really made me watch Microsoft Flight Simulator.
You can step in.
Well, they kind of were using. Is that what they were using to do the simulations?
The simulations.
Yeah.
No, their simulators wouldn't be able to run Microsoft's Flight Simulator.
Mike, did you see the trivia on Sully with Virgin Air?
Oh no, go ahead.
So the airlines would not show Sully. None of the airlines would show Sully on their flights for obvious reasons. But
Yes.
Virgin Air was like, this actually shows a proper, like, nobody pays attention to the safety announcement anyway. This might actually get people to pay attention. And this is how you safely evacuate an airplane. We should be showing this on planes.
You're absolutely right.
It became an instructional video.
They should have paid Tom Hanks a ton of money for United Airways to like get him to do the safety briefing on the
Sort of like the way they do it with Delta, where they grab and do random witty stuff, like they did the Muppets for a while, and they do funny stuff for all their safety stuff to make people actually want to pay attention.
Yeah.
Delta.
How bad some of the acting was in some of these movies. I think the worst actor in both these movies is the real Sully at the end. He really comes off like a real Muppet. Thanks for handing me that word. I had a real Jeb Bush moment at the end where he's like, in our hearts and in our minds, and then nobody reacts for 10 seconds, and then people start clapping. I was like, ooh.
They thought he was going to say more. The poor guy.
Oh, that was cringy, man. I felt bad.
It was. I did too.
Oof.
But if you have, you should watch some of like his original interviews and stuff that actually happened even after the movie came out. And he's a pretty, I will say this, he comes across as a very humble person. I don't know him, so I can't say that. But when he has done all of his interviews and everything else, he has come across very humble and very, I don't feel like a hero. I did what, anybody would do trying to save. Yeah. Right. And he always has come across that way, even right after when people were trying to interview him. And he was like, I'm not a hero. It was a day. It was my job. So
the people in these movies, the passengers are incredibly lucky because most plane crashes don't end good at all for anyone.
Correct.
Well,
it was crazy. That water landing scene was,
and
him flipping the plane too was nuts.
If I can, I want to point out my favorite shot in Sully because I kind of agree with Tom. I was pretty bored with Sully, because I knew the story, because we all watched it unfold. But the shot where the guy gets up in his apartment, walks towards the window, and you see the plane, and then the camera pulls a 180, and you see him through the glass, and you see the reflection of the plane.
Yes.
Like that shot spoke volumes.
It's beautiful.
Number one, holy shit, there's a plane headed towards me. Number two, not again, because this was so close to September 11th. And that shot was fantastic. And everything you guys have said about the first 20 minutes or the whole flight sequence of Flight in the beginning is, I agree 100%.
And I have to say, in our overall, we have to talk a little bit about visual effects because, holy shit. So Flight, there are moments when it's like, yeah, okay, that's a little, it's fake. But for the most part, the actual shots of the plane and the way that they portray the plane as a character and the visual effects that went around in both of these movies is pretty seamless. And you don't even think about watching it and going, wow, all of that plane work and the plane crashing into the water and the plane, hitting the steeple and everything, like all of those things, that was all CG. Like that, they didn't actually fly a plane and do these things to get any kind of practical effect. That is computers, man. And that's pretty impressive because there's a lot of times some of those moments kind of take you out because you're like, I know it's fake, but you are so involved and they did such a nice job. It never pulls you out of those shots. And I thought that was pretty impressive for both movies.
Nope, that's true.
Yeah, and one thing,
if it's not well done,
right?
Yeah,
and one thing I've always felt about like most Clint Eastwood movies is that he shies away from visual effects, and a lot of his movies and his stories don't really contain elements like that. They don't need a lot of visual effects or anything like that.
Space Cowboys.
Did he direct that one? I don't remember. Did he?
Yep.
A lot of his movies don't require that, and so I was interested to see how he would handle that in Sully, and like Andrew said, I think it was handled quite well.
And you also have Sands of Iwo Jima and what was the film before that?
Flags of Our Fathers.
Flags of Our Fathers. Like the shots of the fleet in those are absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's really hard to walk into a production company and be like, so remember how Captain Sullivan landed a plane on the Hudson? We want to do that again so we can shoot it because I don't believe in CG.
Right.
So can we get a stunt driver,
a
fake plane, and we're just going to make this happen? So
I mean,
what day can we do that?
If we're just rambling on here with stuff, the two divers that dove into the Hudson in the movie were the two divers that actually dove into the Hudson when it happened.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
the ferry boat captain, played by the actual ferry boat captain that rescued them.
I also thought the fire department, the 3 fire department people at the end there that were in the locker room that run out, I believe those were the actual fire from FD or from New York Fire Department.
Right. Well, the reason the diver thing stuck out to me was one of them was named Robert Rodriguez.
Not the same one.
Stereotypically New York talking about baseball together.
Yes.
That was pretty crazy. I totally had a thought and now I can't remember it. So take this advantage to shame me.
Boo.
Dennis Eckersley is pretty great.
He is. He had a far better mustache than Mariano Rivera.
I would say that, part of telling this story, even though people saw it live, I think is more of just the same reason why there were movies about 9/11. It was something that unfolded live that I would say that a lot of people have seen and watched. I think this movie has a way of being able to slightly historically, tell a story for generations to come to be able to see some of the heroism that is actually still left in the world.
No, I agree.
No, I'm not buying that.
I'm not calling Sully a hero, but like he said, it took all of them, of them, and they all acted professional. And like you guys even mentioned it, how he kept his cool. Like he was just calm. He knew the plane. He knew what they were going to have to do, and he made the choices because he's the captain, right? And it is amazing to me to see that. Now, I totally get that, but did we need a movie that came out, 6 years after? I don't know.
Sure, come on. They make Princess Switch and all that shit on HBO.
I know.
I mean, there was a book. The book came out before that. I don't know. I guess I look at it as it's just another medium to be able to tell the story that some people didn't experience. And whether or not it's a documentary, it's not. It's more for entertainment, but it at least is based on actual events that happen in a way. Even the 9/11 movies that you watch, not all of them are true to life, but they at least have some sort of storytelling enough that it gives, it's a form of media and expression. Some people paint, some people took pictures on that day, some people wrote books, other people started foundations. Somebody made a movie. That was their artistic expression. And that's, I see some of that as they took the book and they made a movie out of it. Whether it is the best movie in the entire world, no. But, somebody cataloged a moment in life with a movie. And I can't say that that's a bad thing. And even Flight, unfortunately, all of those people did not survive like they had in Flight. However, the story is still based on something that was partially true. And so there is some of that to it as well. But I know, Tom, I think you're dying.
It's a little dangerous, I think, to be kind of using these as historical references. It's entertainment. It is entertainment, but there's going to come a point where some of these movies are this is going to be the official retelling of what happened.
Happens now.
I know it happens now. That's what I'm saying. That I don't. If you're going to take something, Flight, for example, take something that happened and just grew the entire story off that. No one's going to confuse Flight with what happened in 2000 on Alaska Air. People will take Sully and they will demonize the NTSB as inefficient government bullshit, and they're not doing their job right, and all this other stuff. And it's people will change influence their opinion of how government works when the NTSB is actually one of the least partisan parts of our government. And I don't like that Clint Eastwood did that, or that the writers did that. I just feel that that's if you had a compelling story, you shouldn't have had to do that.
Sure, I agree with that. We also have Westerns out there that are not real to life, and people watch those and think, oh, that's what the Old West was like. I mean, it's people's mind's eye, right?
Right.
I realize
Avatar really happened, right?
Right. See, Star Wars happened a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So it really happened.
Okay.
But I'm not looking at it as this is in school we should teach Sully. I'm looking at it as it is an expression of a story that happened in our history.
Right. And
I realize there are some things that are bad about it, because you're right. The NTSB, I don't like the way they made them be the protagonist just because they needed a protagonist. It doesn't make sense. They did it in Flight too, though. I don't know why people do that.
Because there wasn't a story. I mean, really, without the NTSB, you don't have a Sully movie if you don't demonize them. And the fact that Sully himself came out and said, you need to change the name of all the people in this because you've twisted what they did so dramatically. At that point, I'd be like, we have a problem with this movie.
Yeah, and for book readers out there, the book does not demonize it. The book actually focuses more on Sully and him and the moments of the actual events, and don't really go into the artistry of Hollywood.
All right, guys, do you have anything else to say about these films?
No, I'm so tired of talking about these two movies.
They were on the big screen. Mike, you look really good, and yeah.
Thank you, Gabe.
What? Am I voting? Oh, okay. Sorry,
No,
I was like,
you gotta give
what?
Mike
Do you want me to say something else?
Gabe, it's your turn to give me a compliment.
If you want me to. I actually really liked both of these movies. And we sometimes talk about rewatchability. I think I would have a hard time rewatching Flight, though. It's so dark at times. I'm going to vote for Sully.
All right, Tom. Tom froze up.
Nope, I hear you. Name.
Your
Flight.
Flight. All right.
Flight.
Or Andrew, I'm already putting you down for Sully.
Sully, I think.
Yep.
I think that was one of them that we watched this week, right?
Kyle.
Well, why change my stripes now? I'll vote for Sully.
All right. Okay. When another aeronautical pioneer from Ohio, Neil Armstrong, became the first man to step foot on the moon in 1969, inside his spacesuit pocket was a piece of muslin from the left wing of the original 1903 Wright Flyer, along with a piece of wood from the airplane's left propeller.
Is that true? Because I've heard that before, but I didn't know if that was really.
Yes.
That's incredible, to be honest.
Okay, so here, the planes.
There's a movie, Tom.
What?
In order
Neil
for you
Armstrong?
to believe,
I saw that one too. And it's Damien Chazelle, so.
You have to believe Neil Armstrong went to the moon, and I don't think so.
Oh, Jesus, here we go.
Here we are. So
I'm not saying Flat Earth is right. I'm just saying investigate Flat Earth.
The 1903 Wright Flyer was the first successful powered airplane with a pilot aboard. The range of the first flight was 120 feet on that day, and the best was 852 feet. The wingspan was 40 foot 4 inches, length 21 feet 1 inch, height 9 feet 4 inches. The weight, empty, 605 pounds. And the engine was a 12 horsepower motor that was supplying power to 2 props. And I believe the props were 8 foot long. Now, in flight, the plane in flight is a McDonnell Douglas MD-80, also known as a Mad Dog. And the Airbus A320 is in Sully, and they are very similar. The Mad Dog is a little bit longer, and the engine configuration is different. But I just wanted to give you an idea of what we're talking about as far as size differences here. And since Tom came back and said that he was going to be working on the poster while I gave some nonsense about airplanes, here you go, Tom.
It's done. Thank you.
Yep. The range of Airbus A320 is 3,300 nautical miles. The wingspan is 111 feet 11 inches. The length is 123 feet 3 inches. The tail height is 38 feet 7 inches. And it weighs empty 93,900 pounds. It has 2 engines, and each engine is 14,460 horsepower. And I was going to do the top speed for each one, but I couldn't get a top speed for the Wright Flyer, so I left it off. So there you go. There's a little comparison between what the Wright brothers first flew and the 2 planes that we talked about, or at least the movies that we talked about, the 2 planes that are in them.
Well, I heard the Wright brothers didn't know how far they were going to go, and they couldn't find a measuring device long enough, so they lined up poor people every 10 feet, and they hit the 12th one.
Jesus. What?
Oh, my God.
Just investigate the Wright brothers.
Investigate. Okay, Tom.
More like the Wrong Brothers.
Tom, what's your recommendation?
So I watched these two movies, and I love plane crash movies. So I decided to watch another plane crash movie right after these two. So I watched Flight of the Phoenix, which is a 1965 movie with Jimmy Stewart and Richard Attenborough, George Kennedy, and Ernest Borgnine. So if you're ever on a plane and you see Ernest Borgnine and George Kennedy, get the fuck off the plane.
Yeah.
Because bad shit's about to happen. That's what they're known for. But it's a story of an oil company transport, and some soldiers are flying across the desert to Benghazi, and they crash, and they basically have to construct a new plane before they run out of water, and then fly that plane to safety. And it's very good. It's older Jimmy Stewart, so you kind of know that he's a little mishmouth, and it's 1965, so the score really sucks, but the story is very compelling, and has a monkey in it. So I know people like movies with monkeys. So,
and they made a remake of it that had
Dennis Quaid.
Dennis
Quaid
Quaid
made a remake.
And Giovanna Ribisi.
Yeah, I did not watch that one.
I like that one.
So, is it good?
I like it. But I really love the original. I'm glad
I was going to watch both, and I looked at the ratings on it, and I decided to watch the better one. So.
Yes, the original is definitely better. All right, Andrew.
I'd just like to point out quick, if you see any of those people on a plane, they're ghosts or you're in hell.
Well, okay. Yeah, that's fair.
It may be bad luck, but if you see them these days.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yep,
you're right.
fair.
You'd be okay, or you're dead.
Oh,
I'm saying.
Yeah.
Oh shit. All right,
Andrew.
I don't know how to follow that. Okay, so my recommendation is actually, I don't believe a lot in remakes, but this is the only movie I've ever wanted to remake myself. I think would be a lot of fun and could be truly enhanced story-wise and visual effects-wise. It is also an airplane disaster crash movie, and no, it is not Airplane by the Zucker brothers. It is a 1989 movie about plane crashes that happen, and all of the people survive, and it's called Millennium. And basically, so Chris Christopherson is in this movie.
That's right.
But this movie goes into basically the planes right before they end up crashing. They get taken into a parallel dimension, and all of the passengers removed, and no one knows why. Dun dun dun. You guys are like, yeah, sure, okay, moving on.
All right, Andrew. Thank you, Kyle.
Never seen Millennium. I remember Will-ennium from Will Smith. God, I'm old. So I'm going to recommend a movie that has anything to do with plane crashes, but it is kind of terrifying. And it's a movie I saw this last week in the theater. It stars Ralph Fiennes and Anya Taylor-Joy. It's called The Menu. It is a kind of a thriller, slow burn psychological film. And I really dug it. I think you should check it out. It has a lot to say about food culture as well, which I kind of found interesting.
All right.
Really want to see it.
Thank you, Kyle. Gabe.
Well, I am going to go with another airplane crash movie. I'm going to recommend United 93. And it's another movie based on, obviously, on real life events. The nation's collective trauma after 9/11, and I think it's really well done, really well put together film by Paul Greengrass, who did some of the Jason Bourne movies and such. It's really great. Kind of character study of all of these people on the plane that goes down in Pennsylvania on 9/11, and I just found it really powerful and really pretty meaningful. So I would recommend United 93 if you can stand to watch another plane crash movie.
Well, usually I try to stay on topic, but when I was in San Francisco, I got hooked on a TV show, and I binged all 7 seasons plus the latest season of the kind of newer series that they are doing. But it's on Amazon Prime. Tom is eating his chocolates and very loudly.
Fuck off. Sorry. I'm trying to be quiet.
It stars Titus Welliver, Jamie Hector, and Amy Aquino. I believe I'm saying that right. It is a police drama, but it is not a, your typical every episode they solve the case and they move on to the next week's case. It is the entire season is one case, and I love it. And love the character. I believe it's based on the books by Michael Conley. But anyway, it's called Bosch, and it's on Amazon Prime, and you can watch it for free. I love it. I think you would probably like it as well. So, Tom, what has been your favorite, I'm not saying the best, but your favorite piece of media this year, whether it be a movie or a TV show?
My favorite, certainly not the best, probably Bullet Train. I thought it was an absolute blast, and I loved it so much. In the same vein, I saw Violent Night last night. It was also really good, but Bullet Train's a little more polished. It's a bit funnier, but Christmas season, so Violent Night is good too. But I would say Bullet Train's my favorite of the year.
All right, Andrew.
Yeah, this is really hard. So I would say I'm going to pick one of my favorite movies from this year, because I think I had a top, but I really think this one stands out from the uniqueness of it and the fact that it's a lower budget movie, and the movie makes, when I watch it, it's like, wow, this is kind of how I think. It's just kind of all over the place and yet fun and entertaining all at the same time. And that's Everything Everywhere All at Once. So, and if you haven't seen it, watch it a couple of times. It'll get you. It's a pretty good dang flick.
All right. I've been wanting to watch that. Kyle.
Some good movies this year. The Menu's up there for me. I really enjoyed that. But I think my favorite movie that I saw this year was Nope by Jordan Peele. I really dug that movie. Very good. Some people have given it some guff about some of the side plot things that are going on, and I feel like it's really misunderstood, and people just aren't maybe grasping some of the pieces of it. But man, yeah, hard to beat that movie. Really, really good.
All right. That's also on my list. Gabe.
Did Blade Runner come out this year?
Yes, it did, Gabe. You're fine.
Oh, well, that's it then.
Okay.
That's it. Well, I don't know. I don't know that I've seen a lot of newer movies recently. I haven't been out to the theaters too much. But I think there's maybe a couple that stick out for me. I really enjoyed Dune. I finally got to see it this year. And I think I really, really enjoyed Nobody. It's not, I don't know that it's a really great movie, but it was just really enjoyable and satisfying, and I really like Bob Odenkirk. So I think that would probably have to be one of my favorites this year.
Well, unfortunately, right now, the only movies I get to watch are the ones for the show. And I have to take little bite-sized pieces of TV shows like what I mentioned for Bosch. I can watch in, half hour here, half hour there. But my favorite thing this year, and I didn't know I wanted it until I started watching it, and that was Andor on Disney Plus. I absolutely love this series. And the first 2 episodes, I'm like, nah, Okay. And then something just clicks in the third episode, and I'm hooked. So if you haven't checked out Andor yet, I would highly recommend it.
Yeah, and I just realized that I think both of my choices are from last year, which tells you how often I get to watch these movies.
I know.
I really don't get to watch movies as much as I would like to.
And like Tom was saying, you need like 2 hours just to set aside to watch the films. And I haven't had the time, so I've been watching series, or I've been playing the series on my phone with an earpiece in so I can hear while I'm doing other stuff. Yeah, but let's poke the monkey. Find out who won.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Your winner by decision is Sully!
Last time we had that score was Speed beating Face Off.
Really? No one seemed surprised on that, especially after Andrew and his diatribe.
I didn't mean to get everybody swayed. I was, what? I could be passionate
just
about
out of the
stuff
gate, guys. I fucking hate this movie.
See, Kyle, now I know how it feels, Kyle.
See, don't you feel bad? You're like, oh man.
I'm not saying Andrew, threw it, but I'm just saying, investigate it for yourself and think.
And flattered. I just like to say, I'm with you, Andrew. I felt the same way you did. So
yeah, they are not good people, not at all. Totally agree. We would appreciate it if you could leave us a review on whatever podcasting service you use. It helps us reach new listeners. If you like us, tell your friends. If you hate us, tell your enemies. You can contact us at cinesmack@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Just search Cinesmack. In January, we throw 2 animated families into the ring to see who gets erased. It's the Mitchells versus the Machines against the Incredibles. For Andrew, Tom, Kyle, Gabe, and myself, thanks for listening. Happy holidays. And go catch a flick.
Deck the halls with boughs of holly, fa la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be jolly, fa la 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 la. Don we now our gay apparel, fa la 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 la. Hey, the Yuletide carol, fa la 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 la. Take it, Russ.
Sentimental hogwash.
Fragile. It must be Italian.
You want the moon? Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around and pull it down.
You'll have some firecrackers.
In the heat of battle, my father wove a tapestry of obscenity that, as far as we know, is still hanging in space over Lake Michigan.
Get me back, I don't care what happens to me. Get me back to my wife and kids. Help me, Clarence, please. Please. I want to live again.
Merry Christmas! Dinner was full!
I wish I had $1 million.
I had to have it replaced because every time Catherine revved up the microwave, I'd piss my pants and forget who I was for a half hour or so.
I have since heard of people under extreme duress speaking in strange tongues. I became conscious that a steady torrent of obscenities and swearing of all kinds was pouring out of me as I screamed.
Your mouth's bleeding. Are you sure you're all right? Your mouth's bleeding, Bert! Your mouth's bleeding! There they are! Bert! What do you know about this? Merry Christmas!
How do the little piggies go?
Holy shit! Where's the Tylenol?
This has been a test of the Southsider Studios podcast system. This was only a test. If this were a true lack of entertainment, your head would explode. Go to iTunes and subscribe to our feed. Just search Southsider Studios.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper? A woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver. If you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. Choose from hundreds of social casino style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.